Okay, I will begin again to read the Universal One by Walter Russell. And this chapter is called Omnipresence. Now let me get this started. Okay. Man's concept of God as omnipresent or universally present is an inconsistent concept, for it does not include man or nature in that concept as God or as part of God. Man has been so trained to look for God outside the realms of nature as an incomprehensible, substanceless God, separate and apart from himself and from that which he knows as the physical universe, that it has become a tradition of his thinking, a fixed habit of his thinking. It may be a shock, therefore, to the outer mind of man to find a comprehensible God, of which he himself and all phenomena of nature are one. If this discovery shook man's earthbound mind, then he must learn to readjust his thinking, for there is no other God than mind, and there is no other mind than the one universal mind. Nor is there any other purpose for mind than the purpose of thinking. Man cannot conceive any other purpose for mind than that of thinking, nor is there any other product of thinking than ideal. Creation is but an ideal of thinking mind. The divine concept, materialized into this universe of matter, is a stupendous ideal of mind, but it varies not one bit in principle from the simplest ideal of man. Nor does it vary in universal mechanics from the dynamic principles employed by man for the materialization of his ideas. God is mind, man is mind. All idea of God or man is but the product of thinking mind, registered in matter as form of ideal. All ideal is an illusion of mind, and visible only to mind as an illusion. Ideal is held in form by mind for countless periodic intervals of evolution and dissolution. All thinking is universal thinking, immortal thinking. There is no mortal thinking. All idea of mind is perfect. Imperfection of mind cannot exist. Separation of mind into parts is impossible. Therefore, there are not two minds or two substances. The one substance of mind is light. Light is universal. Man is light and man is universal. That which is universal is omnipresent. Man is therefore omnipresent. All matter is omnipresent. The universe has no extension, continuity, space, nor time. The oneness of the universe allows no exceptions, no mistakes, no error in its all-inclusiveness. Nothing is omitted from the entirety of mind. There are no separable parts to mind. No apparent part of mind has locality or position. All matter is universally present. All matter is light. Mind is light. Mind is the universe. Mind is all one. Next chapter is omnipotence. Omnipotence means that all the power that exists. Omnipotence means all the power that exists. The omnipotence of the universe is limited in its expression by the limited power of the universal constant of energy to accumulate potential. The dynamic energy born of the action and reaction of universal thinking is the beginning of the activity of that which man calls electricity and magnetism, through which the universal constant of energy functions in the creation of separate appearances in matter by periodic change of dimension. It is the beginning of apparent division of indivisible things into their apparent opposites. It is the beginning of sex. Sex begins when the opposites of light begin. It is the beginning of that which man knows as light and of the colors of light. It is the beginning of life. Life begins when light begins. It is the beginning of sound. Sound begins when light begins. It is the beginning of the generative concentration of light into that state which man calls heat, and its radiation into that which man calls cold. It is the beginning of integration and disintegration of light energy into the appearance and disappearance of that which man calls matter. It is the beginning of the crystallization of light units into that which man calls solids of matter. It is the beginning of the integration and disintegration of light energy into the appearance and disappearance of that which man calls mass. It is the beginning of the electromagnetic opposition of the two forces which accumulate and dissipate the universal constant of energy into the periodicities of gravitation, attraction, cohesion, radiation, and repulsion of evolving and devolving mass. It is the beginning of the appearance of form. It is the beginning of the combination of form into the appearance of elements of matter and of compounds of matter into that which man calls growth. It is the beginning of apparent transformation of the infinitely simple into the infinitely complex. It is the beginning of the interrelationship of matter, which man calls the chemistry of matter. It is the beginning of force and motion, of force and of the inertial of motion. It is the beginning of time. Time begins when the impulses, with the impulses of universal thinking. It is the beginning of that universal rhythmatic swing of the cosmic pendulum toward the apparent intent of unequilibrium, which is the cause of all creating things. It is the beginning of the illusion of separableness into the appearance of many things. There are no separate things. There is but the one thing. Nothing is of itself alone. In the beginning of the souls of creating things, and of the expression of matter of that which man calls life, it is the beginning of that. The whole of creation is contained in the desire of universal mind to express ideal, form, and rhythm in accord with immutable law in endless sequence through endless ages. Beyond this, there is no more. All mind is universal, and all mind has all power. The mind of man is universal mind. Man has all power. All power is universally present throughout the entirety of this dimensionless universe. All matter and all creating things are the images of thinking mind. Thinking mind is light, and light is universal. That which is universal is not separable from itself. Omnipotence is therefore universal, even to the last corpuscle of the most insignificant atom. All matter is omnipotent. The universe of matter is breathing its energy in tune with the one breathing, pulsing, living being. Call it what you will, whether it be God or mind or the universal one. The in-breathing, out-breathing impulses of the living, thinking God mind is in absolute equilibrium throughout the universe. They are also simultaneous but alternately preponderant. Exhalation proceeds in a lesser degree during inhalation, and inhalation continues but in a lesser degree when exhalation is in preponderance. Also, all motion is simultaneous in its opposition. The opposing motions are merely alternately preponderant. All motion is oscillatory because of this sequence of preponderance in its opposition, of which much will be written in its proper place. No atom, no man, nor creating thing can disassociate all power from the universal one, or increase or decrease it, or be independent of it, in whole or in part. All power is the thinking power of mind. All the universe is mind, and all the universe is thinking in unison. Mind is that universal one thing which man calls God. Mind is the universe. Mind is all. One. All power is from the one. All power returns to the one. Now the next chapter is omniscience. Within the thinking substance of universal mind is all knowledge. The entire substance of mind is knowledge. Knowledge is universal. Man's concept of all knowledge and all intelligence is a wrong concept. To man, knowledge is quantitatively limitless and infinitely complex. Man conceives the boundaries of knowledge and intelligence to be far beyond his comprehension. This is not a true concept. The knowledge and intelligence of universal mind is limited and simple. Knowledge is perception of dimensionless existence, nothing more. Knowledge is an attribute of substance. It belongs to existence and the reality of existence. Knowledge might be likened unto the alphabet. Within the alphabet is all knowledge, but until it is put into words and phrases, the alphabet is devoid of idea. Intelligence is an understanding of the reality of existence as it is registered in the illusion of existence. Intelligence belongs to motion and not to substance. It belongs to the appearance of existence and to the unreality of the illusions of existence. Knowledge is passive, inert. It belongs to the equilibrium of unchanging causes. Intelligence might be likened unto the putting together of the alphabet of knowledge into words and phrases in infinite variety of ideal. If the universal one had not a creative thinking mind, he would possess all knowledge but would be without intelligence. Intelligence is the act of thinking creatively, or in other words, the act of putting together the illusions of ideal into the forms of those illusions. Intelligence is active, opposing. It belongs to the opposed motion of changing effects. Changing effects cannot be known, they can only be comprehended. All knowledge of the illusion of existence is likened to perception of causes of that illusion. Causes are unchanging. Causes are existent. Knowledge is limited to that which is existent. Effects are non-existent. They but appear to exist. They are but ideal in transit. All ideal is transitory. The ideal of thinking mind is always in motion and therefore constantly changing. Solids are as changing as the sunset sky. Their difference of motion is but relative. Therefore, man cannot acquire knowledge from changing effects. He can but acquire a comprehension of its complexities. Man can have no knowledge of the sunset sky, for it is but an effect. Man can have knowledge of the cause of the sunset sky, and of its effect he can comprehend. Knowledge is simple as cause is simple. Comprehension may be ever so complex. That which man calls knowledge is based upon observed causes and effects of complex facts of matter. There are no unconditioned facts of matter in a universe of motion. There are but appearances of facts. Man concedes that all our knowledge must ultimately repose on conditions which are unproved and unprovable. Facts of form and matter are unprovable in a world of space, time, and motion. Matter as form in motion is but an ever-changing effect of an unchanging substance. Effects of matter are manifested in form. Effects are fleeting, they are ever-changing. Form is fleeting, it is ever-changing. Effects of causes are facts only in appearance. Appearances of this moment are not the same the next moment. The facts of appearances disprove themselves in the proving. All facts of form in matter are as the sunset sky. They are but fleeting effects. Causes of the appearance of existence are the only unconditioned facts. In a universe of motion, things are not what they seem, and there is nothing permanent but change. All form is constantly in transit between appearance and disappearance. Transition is not existence. It is but an effect of motion upon a substance which alone is existent. The ripples on the water are an effect upon the substance of water. They have no existence in themselves. Without the substance of water, they could not have appeared. Having appeared as idea of ripples, they will disappear into the substance of water. That which periodically appears in transit throughout the 10-octave range of ideal will also periodically disappear. That which appears must disappear, but also must reappear in accordance with the immutable law that no state of motion ever ends. The divine concept is eternally repetitive in the reproduction of ideal into form, and its dissolution back again into the memory of form. All ideal is periodic in its repetitiveness of form and of the memory of form. The divine concept in its entirety is a stupendous but comprehensible effect of a very simple cause. All effects of this creating universe can be comprehended when all causes are known. The limitations of all thinking are within the laws of motion and the effects of motion. Man can conceive nothing beyond the effects of motion and its cause. No phenomena of matter can be new phenomena of matter. Nothing is or will be which has not always been. All phenomena of matter have finite limitations. All complexities of matter are but effects of light in its orderly and limited variance of motion. The forms or images of ideal are limited even in their variability and complexity to the limitations of the 10-octave range of thinking. Omnipotence does not mean unlimited knowledge. It means all the knowledge that there is. Complexity of ideal does not constitute new knowledge. Quantity and complexity of fleeting effects of unknown cause do not add to knowledge or to intelligence. Knowledge cannot be added to or subtracted from. Knowledge cannot transcend knowledge. Mere possession of knowledge or storing of ideal is not indicative of intelligence. A man may be an encyclopedia of knowledge, but still lack the dynamic intelligence necessary in order to use it by giving it expression as ideal. The acquisition of knowledge by man may be likened unto the counting of grains of sand. A lifetime of futile counting, and the beach is still uncounted, with 10 times 10 million beaches await his useless counting. Men's lives are spent in forever counting unnumbered grains of sand. Men's lives are spent in studying complex, incomprehensible effects of unknown causes. A study of the stars is more ponderous than the counting of grains of sand, but it is of no more import. Knowledge invites conception of ideal in infinite variety, the complexities of which are apparently existent through the act of thinking. It is as though the alphabet desired its letters arranged in infinite variety of ideal. The attribute of desire in knowledge is a cause of the dynamic activity of intelligence. Complexity of idea in forms of matter is only an appearance registered in low octaves of accumulated high octaves. To man, an appearance is that which comes within the range of his perception. When appearance disappears, it has only gone beyond his range of perception. Appearance within the range of man's perception does not mean new existence. This appearance beyond the range of man's perception does not mean cessation of existence. The cloud which disappears beyond the hill does not cease to be a cloud because of its disappearance. Vapor which disappears from man's sense of vision does not cease to be water. It can again reappear to the vision of man as water. Light which disappears into an octave higher than that at which man can perceive it does not cease to be existent as light. The thinking of mind is within the limitations of the knowledge of mind. The thinking of mind is limited to the cognizance of universal being. The limitations of knowledge are within knowledge itself. Beyond the existence of mind, there is no more. Mechanics and mathematics, ideals and ideas, science and art, solids of matter, and the effects of motion are all complex effects of perfect thinking. That which man calls spirit is not extraneous to matter. Matter and spirit are one. Spirit could not create a new substance extraneous to itself. One substance cannot become another substance. Mind is the only existent substance. Nothing is existent that is not spiritual. All existence is limited to thinking, and thinking is limited to 10 octaves. Man's concept of an infinite spiritual existence is a mistaken one. Mind, being all that exists, is limited to its own 10-octave range of thinking, and is also confined to the act of thinking. It has no other purpose nor any other possible activity. That which is limited cannot be infinite, but it can be eternal. Spiritual existence is finite. It has a limited but eternal existence. If divine mind were an infinite mind, it could not be comprehensible to man, but its simple limitations make it easily comprehensible. If thinking is the cause of all effect, and thinking is limited in range, then are the effects of that cause limited in range. Heat is an effect of thinking which has its limitations. Motion, volume, weight, mass, sex, sound, color, form, all these are effects which have their limitations. These effects are comprehensible. Comprehension is therefore limited to the range of possible effects. All intelligence does not therefore mean unlimited comprehension. It means all the intelligence that there is. Finite limitations in the expression of mind, in ideal, might be likened unto the limitation of the painter to the colors on his palette. The painter has infinite variation within the color range of his palette, in the expression of the ideal of the image-making faculty of his mind, Within these limitations, his complexities of variation are without end, but beyond them he cannot go. He is limited by his color range. His color spectrum is his palette, and it has its limitations. The master painter is thus limited by the range of his spectrum, but within these definite limitations, he has infinite possibilities for expression of the ideas of the image-making faculty of his thinking mind. Limitations which are definite cannot be infinite. Divine existence is contained within the limitations of the range of divine thinking. Beyond this range, divine mind cannot perceive or think. The illusions or appearances which man mistakes as existence are but reappearances of old illusions. Reappearances is repetitiveness. The orderliness of created things is due to the invariability of cyclic periodicity in all effects of thinking. The pitch and tone and measure and meter of true thinking is due to the absolute rhythm of the repeating periodicities of thinking. The very dependability of universal mind, reflected in nature's inexorable laws, is due to universal limitations. God has set his own immutable laws in orderly, repeating periodicities of thinking. He himself is limited by them. He himself is bound to the observance of them. God cannot, never has, and never shall change his own immutable laws. Upon this fact is based the very dependability of the universe. Man's belief that God sets aside his own laws to perform miracles is a primitive concept of superstitious man. Superstition belongs to primitive man, who is but learning how to think from within. When primitive man first catches gleams of the divinity within him, he is then rising above the thinking of the animal which he has been. Upon these faint gleams, he builds his primitive concepts based on fear of that which is superior to himself. To primitive man, modern man owes his concepts of a cruel God of supernatural power. These wrong concepts have become traditions of man's mind and habits of his thinking. Modern man inherits the habits of the unbalanced thinking of primitive man. Orderly thinking is perfect equilibrium. Against perfect equilibrium, nothing imperfect can prevail. Variation of the measure of true thinking would throw the rhythm of orderly thinking out of tune, and the universe could not be. To think in light is to think only perfection, for perfection is all that is written there. Mind is perfect, there is no evil. Imperfections or evil is non-existent. Man's concept of evil is a wrong concept. Evil is as impossible as unequilibrium is impossible. The reader will remember that all thinking is an oscillation between two equal and opposite actions and reactions. He will remember that the union of any two exact